Krishna Mahamantra. Just put your hand up if you know the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So Hare, Krishna and Rama. They're just 3 words, 3 names you need to know. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Gaura Premanandi.
Hari 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 Bol. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Haribol, Haribol. That's okay. TK. So thank you very much, Anupam Didi, for your wonderful kirtan. Cheto Dapana Marjanam, the chanting of the divine names, it cleanses the mirror of the heart. And then Vidyavadu Jivanam, it causes the white lotus of good fortune to bloom. Very sublime experience. So now we'll begin with the next part of the program, and that's a discussion on fate versus free will. Very interesting topic. To begin, to further purify the atmosphere, I'll just start with a couple of invocation mantras. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananasalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Narayana Parayana Jarahankara Nashana Rupa Nugamitra Prema Praujanaete Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Rahadikaye Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayana Namane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swahami Namane Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganaraganata Vitam Tvam Sajivam Swadvitam Savadutam Prahijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha Sachidananda Rupaye Krishna Aklistakadane Namo Vedanta Koreva Gurave Bodhisakshane. So today's topic, free will versus determinism. So perhaps raise your hand if you think you are totally in control of your own destiny and everything is happening by your own action. One honest person, yes, raising their hand. Two. And then raise your hand if you think everything is predetermined, it's written in the stars. Definitely, we've got a couple on that side. And then raise your hand if you're just not sure.
It's a bit of both.
It could be a bit of both. We don't know. Once in Assam, in far northeastern India, there was one Hindu man, and he had one daughter and one son. And it was time for his daughter to get married. And in that culture, the bride's family, they pay for the entire marriage. And so the daughter was very, very excited to get married, but actually that family was very poor and they could not afford to pay for the marriage. So then, one day, that Hindu man, he was talking to his neighbor, and the neighbor, he was a Muslim gentleman, and it came up in the course of the conversation that the daughter, she really wanted to get married, but actually he could not afford to pay for the marriage. So then that Muslim man, he said, I'll give you the money and your daughter can get married. I'll pay for the marriage. And then the Hindu man said, oh, that's a very generous offer, but I cannot accept. And the Muslim man, he insisted, no, please take the money and get your daughter married. She'll be very happy. So then that Hindu man, he graciously accepted the money and he said, as soon as I possibly can, I will pay you back the money. So then he made the arrangements and his daughter got married and she was very happy, everything went very nicely. And then a short time after the marriage, that Hindu man, suddenly he passed away before he could pay back the money. And then after some time, that Hindu man's son, he had a dream. And in the dream, his father came to him. And he said, oh my son, your sister's very happy now that she's married, but actually I borrowed some money from our neighbor to pay for the marriage. And before I passed away, I did not get a chance to pay it back our neighbor. And now I've been reborn as a dog in the neighbor's house. And then the son woke up and he thought, whoa, that's a bit of a strange dream. And then the next day, he decided, maybe I should go over and chat to the neighbor. So he went over to the neighbor and he knocked on the door. And he was talking to that Muslim man. And then he asked him, did my father borrow some money for my sister's wedding? And he said yes. And I forgot to mention, in the dream, the father, he said exactly how much money he borrowed. And then the Hindu man's son, he said, did he borrow this amount? And then the Muslim man said, yes. How did you know? And then the Hindu man's son, he said, do you have a dog? And he said, yeah. And he said, can I see the dog? So, so they brought the dog in around the corner, and soon as the dog, he saw the sun, and then tears were coming from the dog's eyes because he could recognize his son. And then that Hindu man's son, he pulled out the exact amount of money, and soon as he put it into the Muslim man's hand, that dog dropped dead. That karma was finished. So Bhakti Vallabhadev Maharaj from Chaitanya Saraswati in Assam, he tells this story because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the workings of karma are unfathomable. Our material mind cannot digest it. You cannot get your mind around it. So intricate. So you're born in a certain family, in a certain place, in a certain ethnicity, in a certain location. This is not coming by random chance. From a certain perspective, we want to investigate a little bit today. From a certain perspective, everything is working perfectly like clockwork. There's one book that's recently been published called Determinism. And this is coming from a very scientific approach. And interestingly, in this book, this man's hypothesis from a scientific perspective is that everything is predetermined. It's quite interesting. And so he gives the analogy or the perspective here. If you have the point of view that this entire material creation, it emanated from a single point, a Big Bang. And then from that Big Bang, everything expanded and various elements came into creation as the temperature changed, as the rate of expansion moved in a certain direction. Stars were formed, all the elements of the periodic tables, as certain maths got collided into one another, planets were formed, cosmoses. All that information for the entire creation was contained in that singular point, and then it expanded outwards. And in that very vast universe of expansion, one single planet was formed, and that planet was called Planet Earth by its inhabitants. And on planet Earth there was one little island called New Zealand, and it just so happens on this Earth planet it had the particular cocktail of elementary structure of balance to give rise to life. And there was water on this planet, and at a certain time frame in the spectra of creation on this Earth planet, life arose and consciousness came. All of this was contained in that singular seed point, the Big Bang, and it just continued to ripple down, emanating further and further and further. And this conscious life, it could self-reflect. It has consciousness, it has awareness. And as this expansion continued, at some point, all up until that, there was some determinism there. The information was already embedded in the aggregate of the creation. But at a certain point, this consciousness arose, and that had free will, and it was no longer influenced by the predeterminism, by the information of creation. So entire planets, the sun, the stars, everything else was already contained within that seed form, but us as individual conscious beings, we are completely free from that. So according to this man in this determinism book, from this creation theory, it's actually slightly absurd to think we are completely independent. So we think, oh, I am very free. But actually this notion of freedom is very, very limited. How free are we? Without breathing, you will die. Without drinking water, you will die. Without eating food after some time, you will die. Without sunshine, there will be no food produced. So this life on this planet is very, very dependent. So this so-called freedom is very, very relative. It's very, very circumstantial. So there's no doubt we have some free will, but actually an analogy I heard many, many years ago is you want to go to the supermarket to buy some peanut butter. If you have a nut allergy, you can buy Vegemite instead. So you go to the supermarket and you're using your free will to choose which peanut butter you want. But you are limited on that particular day by what brands of peanut butter are stocked on the shelf. And you are also limited by how much money you have in your bank account. So you have some element of free will, but also there is some higher forces at play that may be unseen to the conscious eye that are also influencing your choice. So there's somewhat of a balance of both. So it's explained in the Vedas, the Vedic literatures such as the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam. These are the user manuals of the universe. And so every living being they are born into a particular species of life. And this goes in accordance with one's karma and one's desire. For why are some people born in a very affluent family? Why are some people born in a very, very poor family? Why are some people born with no limbs? Why are some people born with great talents? There's no logical or rational way to explain this world without the theory of karma. Otherwise, we just have some limited sentimental belief system, and we quickly find ourselves in a constrictive position trying to explain all the variegatedness in this world. So it's explained in the Vedic literatures that there are 8,400,000 different species of life, but the soul, which is who and what we actually are, a spiritual, a particle of eternal spiritual consciousness, this is transmigrating from species to species, going up and down the various species of life in accordance with your karmas, in accordance with your desires. So don't think just because you have a human form of life now that you will continue to go up the chain of species. Actually, it depends on our mentality, because many people, they may have the human form, but they are not fully utilizing the great utility that is available in this conscious vehicle. So this is from the Vedic perspective, or we can also say from an Eastern perspective, that there is karma and reincarnation. And so many people ask me when I travel to India, oh, how do you deal with all the poverty? How do you deal with all the suffering you see? And yes, there's a lot of suffering in India, but my own subjective experience is the overall level of happiness is actually quite higher than many Western countries. And here in New Zealand, we have the highest youth suicide rate in the world. Why is that? We have financial assistance from the government, we have free medical care, we have paved roads. Life's actually not so bad, it's very beautiful, it's very clean. Yet the youth are very, very unhappy. And in India, you may see some children playing with a stick on the side of the road, but quite often they can be a lot happier, because to go into a culture where for thousands of years it's taken for granted the theory of karma and reincarnation is true. Whether you believe in it or not, that's another subject, but to be connected to that culture, it's a very, very different orientation of life than to think, oh, I just have this one life, and in this one life, this is my only opportunity. And because I only have this one life, the goal of life is to enjoy as much as possible. And if I'm not enjoying, oh, then I'm very depressed. But from the theory of karma and reincarnation, if you're not enjoying right now in this life, don't worry, you have other opportunity. So that the perspective of awareness is a lot more broad. And the current materialistic narrative of we only have this one life, it leads to a lot of suffering, because if I'm not enjoying right now, oh, then it's very, very great cause of despair. So this is a Eastern perspective. It's kind of taken for granted that karma and reincarnation theory is true. There's one man in the US, he has done over 10,000 very, very thoroughly scientifically researched cases of karma and near-death experiences. So this is a lot of these are a lot of case studies with great detail that these people could not know. There was just no way that these people could know certain details about certain topics unless they had experience from a previous life. So, does anyone have any questions, thoughts, or reflections so far on this topic? Any challenges? Challenges are good.
Some people might believe that it's in your DNA, that you got it from hereditary from your parents, and it's these talents.
Yes, such as epigenetics. So, is it just a transference of DNA? Actually, this theory does not exclude the potentiality of karma theory being true, because you are born into a certain family, into a certain circumstance, like in the theory of epigenetics, or often there can be a kind of medical determinism, or predeterminism. If my parents have diabetes, then I have a predisposition to also getting diabetes. But in epigenetics, they say actually it is the lifestyle that activates these certain genomes into coming into manifestation. So if you're born into a family that eats lots of white sugar, and they drink raro, and they're frying bacon 3 times a day, then it's pretty likely that something's medical's going to happen at a certain point in life. And so it's not necessarily in the DNA, but it's in the environment that you grow up in that then conditions you, and then you carry on that kind of behavior, and then that behavior that activates these certain disorders coming into manifestation. So actually, we really like to think in black and white. It's either like this or it's like that. But as we grow in spiritual maturity, one becomes more at home in the paradox, and they can hold a multiplicity of views at the same time. But when our consciousness is more constricted, then we either want it to be black or white. Like there's one philosopher, he says, I think it's William Blake, both read the Bible day and night. One reads black and one reads white. So they're both reading the same book, but one has this perspective and one has that perspective. So we can the theory of karma is very, very broad, and it doesn't exclude any of these things, such as because you're born into a certain family. Like if you know astrology, then Karen can confirm that it's all written in the stars. So right from the time of your birth, a very good astrologer can tell when you're going to get married, when you're going to finish your studies, when you're going to get a certain injury, when your grandmother's going to pass away. All these things are in the movement of the planets at the time of your birth. So there's a certain element of predeterminism there, but we also eternally have free will. But how can we actualize that free will? This is where we want to come to, because we never see the world actually as it is. We always see it through the lens of our collected experiences, because everyone here, they have had different experiences in life, and these experiences, they leave impressions in our consciousness, and this collected aggregate of impressions, this forms a filter or a certain lens of glasses, some glasses that we wear, and then we see reality through these lenses, through these glasses. So because every single person is wearing a slightly different shade of glasses, we all see the world slightly different. But everyone has this subjective experience, oh, my experience is very true, and it's subjectively true for you. But the question comes, what is it like to actually experience reality without these glasses? What is the world? What is life? What is your partner? What is your family? Who are your parents? Without seeing them through your lens of glasses. What is that like? Does anyone know? Actually, we don't know. It's a completely foreign experience. because all we know is to engage with reality through this set of lenses that we're wearing. So spiritual life means to take control of your destiny and actually move towards taking off these glasses and then see life, see reality actually as it is, not just through our collected series of impressions. Because this collected series of impressions, it's all constrictive. It's very painful actually. It's an unnatural state. Anyone have any thoughts about this so far? Any challenges? Come on, there must be some challenges. No? Okay. Maybe it's time for another story. You know, in the Norse tradition, Frigg and Odin, they're like two of the top gods. They had one son, and his name was Balder. And Balder was the personification of the radiance of the earth. A great luster would emanate from him, and he was so loved by everyone. He was so kind, he was so compassionate. He was a very gentle soul. And as he grew up, he won the hearts of every living entity. The trees, the water, everyone loved Balder. Everyone. And in due course of time, he met one nice lady, and they got married, and they were very much in love. And they had a son. And then after some time, Balder, he started to have disturbing dreams. And in the dreams, he could see that his life was coming to an end. And these dreams persisted. Perhaps some of you here have had a premonition in a dream, and that dream may have come true. I just had a call with one of my teachers yesterday, and in September 10th, 2001, he was in Brooklyn, New York, and that night he had a dream, and there was 2 towers in the dream, and dark clouds were gathering, and pieces of those buildings, they start to fell down, and there was a great thunderstorm. And then the next day, September 11th, 2001, we all know what happened. How did that happen? And another time in Connecticut, there was one lady who was really depressed, and she wanted to end her life. So she was preparing everything around her to end her life, and then some numbers came into her mind, and it's numbers that she was unacquainted with. It was a very long phone number, and so she decided, okay, I will call this phone number. So she put the numbers in the phone, and then the phone was ringing. And then all the way in Europe somewhere, I forget which country, there was one man walking past a public phone box, and the phone box was ringing. And this man thought, well, this is quite strange. Public phone boxes don't usually ring. And it was ringing, it was ringing, it was ringing. So then he decided to pick it up. And that man was a priest. And then he got into a conversation with that lady, and he became her mentor. And she decided, oh, there's some hope, and I won't end my life. So Balder, he was having these prophetic dreams where he was seeing the end of his own life. And then so he told his mother, Frigg, and a mother's love knows no bounds. And she was really concerned. So she decided, I will go around to every living being in creation and make them promise that they will not harm my son. So she went to the trees, she went to the oceans, Oh, make me a promise, oceans, that you will never harm my son. She went to the fire. Make me a promise that you will never burn my son. She went to the wind. Oh, never dry out and blow away my son. She went to every living being in creation. She went to the giants. She went to the small people, the animals, the insects, every living being. And because every living being loved Boulder so much, they were all promised, yes, we will never ever harm Boulder. But there was one little plant that she thought, oh, this plant's very insignificant. There's no need to ask this plant to not harm my son. And so this plant was the mistletoe. So then she thought, every being's given their promise, they will never harm my son. And then the gods got together, and because they thought Boulder was now invincible, they had one pastime, one game of throwing things at Boulder. So they were throwing strikes of lightning, throwing rocks. Some of the gods would rip up trees and they would throw trees. It was a favorite pastime of the gods. Gave them great joy to throw various objects at Boulder, and they would all just bounce off and he will remain unharmed. Meanwhile, Loki, the trickster god, he wasn't Boulder's biggest fan. So then he disguised himself and he went to Frigg, and he asked, oh, what are the gods doing? They're throwing everything at Boulder. And then Frigg said, oh, I have been around every single being in creation, and they have given me a promise that they will never harm my son. And then Loki, in disguise, he asked, oh, did you really go around every single living being? And then Frigg confided, oh, actually I didn't ask the mistletoe. So Loki just played it cool. Oh, okay. And then Loki went away, and he went far, far to the northwest, and he went to see the mistletoe. And he picked some mistletoe, and he fashioned the mistletoe into a dart. And then he came back to where the gods were enjoying their pastimes of throwing various objects at Boulder. And he saw there that Boulder's brother, Halder, he was blind, and so he wasn't participating in these fun and games. And so Loki, he went to Halder and he said, oh, why aren't you enjoying with everyone else? And Halder said, oh, it's because I'm blind, I cannot participate. And Loki, being the very clever trickster, he said, oh, why can't you participate? No harm can come to Boulder. And then so he convinced Halder, oh, you should also throw things at your brother. And then in the hand of Halder, Loki slipped one mistletoe dart that he had personally created. And then Halder, he threw that dart at Boulder, and then Boulder fell dead to the floor. Everyone was shocked, and the shrill of the cries of Frigg still resonate in the ether today. Such despair to see her son, who she thought was invincible and was loved by everyone, falling dead to the floor. And just as Boulder was about to give up his life airs to take his last breath, his father Odin, he went over and he leaned close into Boulder, and he whispered inside of Boulder's ear. And what he whispered, we'll never know. So then Boulder, he was taken down into the underworld, and all living beings, they were really in despair at the loss of their great friend. And his mother Frigg was absolutely distraught. So then Frigg thought, I must get my son back, there must be a way. So then she went down, she travelled down into the underworld, and she saw Hel, the Norse god of the underworld. And she pleaded with Hel, oh please, Balder's loved by everyone, please, he must return. And Hel said, there's a possibility, but there's one condition. You must get agreement from every living being that they all love Balder. And if you can get agreement from every living being that they all love Balder, then I will release him and he can go back up to the upper world. So then Frigg, she embarked on a great journey once again, and she travelled all around the upper worlds and the lower worlds and the middle worlds, seeing every living entity, seeing the trees, seeing the plants, seeing the insects, all the various ferns and shrubs in the forest, and getting agreement from them that they all dearly love Balder. And then finally, she went to the giants, who are the natural enemy of the gods. And even all the giants, they agreed they all loved Balder. But there was one giant that didn't. And some say that giant was Loki in disguise. And because that one giant said, I'm neither here nor there on Balder, because of that, Balder was banished for eternity in the underworld. Frigg was devastated. And actually, in the Norse legends, this brings about the end of the era of the gods from our seeing vision. And so, because the gods were very distraught about this, they decided to seek some revenge on Loki. So they captured Loki, and they captured Loki's son. And then they killed Loki's son, and they pulled out his entrails, and they tied up Loki to a rock in a cavern deep underground. And above Loki, they hung one pot of poison with a hole in the bottom. And then that poison drips down onto the bound Loki, and he screams in agony. So his wife, she's there with one, she also has one pot, and she tries to catch the falling poison so it doesn't fall on her husband. But every now and again, that pot of poison becomes full, and she has to go and empty it. And when she goes to empty the pot, then that burning poison falls onto Loki, and he screams in agony, and the entire world shakes. And so in the Norse traditions, when there is an earthquake, that is the drops of poison falling on Loki, and the earth is trembling. So there's a similar story in many traditions around the world, that some child was born. Often the theme is this child's going to do so and so, very evil, and the parents think, but I love my child so much, I will do everything I can to avoid this happening. And in the course of trying to make that happen, that prophecy comes true. So these are just a couple of stories to get the mind thinking. We can go into this subject in great detail, but everyone's already falling asleep, so I'm not going to go into the technicalities of it. But from astrology, from so many points of view, Our destiny is written in the stars, but at the same time we eternally have free will. So when we are in a contracted state of consciousness, we cannot actualize that free will. And we are just bound, and whatever impression comes into the active part of our consciousness, we just follow that. And we think, oh, this is my thought. Oh, it's my free will to go to Spirit Fest. It's my free will to go and get the cup of cacao. It's my free will to go to this workshop. I'm very free. I'm the master of my destiny. But simply, we are like one donkey. And that thought is like a carrot. And we are following this thought here and there. And so in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, he has called this tanu, the active impression in the active part of the consciousness. And then vikschinna, that active impression rotates and another one comes in, and then we follow that one. And so we're going here and there, here and there, here and there, like one donkey. And we are thinking, oh yes, I am very free, I am the master. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Prakriti kriyamani gunakamani sabashira hankara vidutama kaitahamiti manyate. The bewildered living entity, he thinks he's the doer, but actually all these things are just being carried out by the modes of material nature. And as our consciousness becomes purified, then we can see, oh, actually, I am just following so many thoughts. And to actually actualize our free will, it starts to manifest when we can choose, do I really want to follow this thought or not? And that goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And since beginningless time, our entire existence is centered around our own individual self. Everything we do is all about me, aham mamayati, me, I and mine. But actually, as our consciousness becomes purified, then our thoughts awaken from just thinking about me. We think about others. We think about the environment around us. And this contextual horizon broadens more and more and more and more until we get to what's called the final cause. And so one great saint, he says, all fear arises from forgetfulness of our common guardian. Because when we understand there's no fault in the world's perfect. This may seem like a radical statement. If some of you have traveled, you'll see there's a lot of environmental pollution, there's a lot of war. So how can I say that the world is perfect? Seems a bit strange, yeah? Everything, if you get a speeding ticket, in the mail you receive that ticket and you're like, oh dang, I was speeding. And then you have to pay it. So whatever happens in your life, this is the mail that you yourself have sent. No one else. This is karma, yeah? But we receive this mail and we, oh, this person, that person, oh no, so unfair. No,
Lack of accountability.
And we get out the violin and the orchestra and but actually we are just sending this mail. And so the other person, they are simply delivering the mail that we ourselves have sent. But at the same time, they are also sending themselves mail. And so this whole cycle, it's like quicksand. And you just sink further and further into it. So here in Krishna consciousness, we are sharing a methodology of how to extract yourself from this quagmire, from this quicksand of karma. And one cannot do it by their own effort. Mama maya drutaya, mama eviya prakrante taramikam tarantite. This endless ocean of karma is insurmountable. You cannot cross it from your own effort. If you are drowning in the ocean, you will struggle and struggle and struggle. But you need someone to come along on a boat and pull you up out of the ocean onto that boat. So we need the liberated soul, the teacher, the guru, who is liberated from this bondage of karma, and then by their instructions, by their mercy, And by our own endeavors, both mercy and our own endeavors, they can pull us onto that. Like, for example, if you're down a well and someone throws you the rope, they can try and pull you up, but if you don't hold the rope, you're not going to go anywhere. So it takes both. You need to hold on to the rope, but someone also needs to help you. So it takes mercy and effort. And then slowly, we can cross over this ocean. So Krishna says, this material Maya, this illusion, you cannot cross it by yourself. But those who surrender to the final cause, those who try to connect to the supreme reality, very easily they can cross over this ocean. So we're just touching very lightly on this subject of karma today. But so long as the center pole of our existence is our own ego, our own endeavor, our own mentality, this is all ego and it's all karma. Everything we do for us, it's karma, and it binds us more and more. And what we can do in selfless service, this frees us, actually. It frees our mind, it frees our consciousness. But because we've been in this endless cycle of karma since beginningless time, and in every single transmigration of species that we've been in, our consciousness has only been absorbed in us. So it's very, very difficult to get out of this self-centered mentality. But you'll see any liberated saint in any tradition, they have nothing better to do than serve others.
They would give their feet off, like shirt off.
They'll give the shirt off their back.
Whatever
because
religion it is. It's
what
the
else
same
do they have to
analogy.
do? And paradoxically, they get the most from it. And I can offer this money back guarantee, even though you're paying nothing. So you paid to get in here, but I'm not getting that.
But I'll take you.
Anytime you are suffering, anytime, look and see. You are suffering because you are trying to hold on to a certain perspective. I remember vividly, a couple of years back, I was driving along, having some problems in my life, and I was feeling quite contracted. And then it just dawned on me, I'm trying to hold on to a certain point of view. And I could just see that. And you know, it's one thing to understand, intellectually understand, right? We hear so many things and intellectually you understand it and you get it and you think you get it. But it's another thing to actually see something. When you actually see it, when you actually realize it, then it's like undoing a bowstring and something fully collapsed and you realize it, and instantaneously there can be a shift in your life. So in that moment I saw, whoa, I'm trying to hold on to a certain point of view. And then in that moment it was just like a bowstring undoing on a box. And I could breathe. So anytime we're suffering, we're trying to hold on to a certain preference, a certain point of view. And whatever's happening is happening. It's reality. And just see how much we are actually averse to reality. Because whatever is happening, that is reality. But we suffer when we have aversion to what is happening. And we want things to be in a certain way. So we are constantly in combat with reality. We're in combat with God, if you want to use that term. We're in combat with the universe. So I'm not saying that it's wonderful things like war and famine are going on, but when we understand the deeper mechanics of why they're happening, and we're not in a combative relationship to it, we become more charged and energized to actually come to a resolution and a solution. So, and we become empowered, because when you're coming from a combative perspective, you are not connected to reality. You're in competition with reality and you'll run out of energy. When you are in alignment with reality, then you'll become empowered by an unending source, and then you can actually bring about change. But you can't try to align with reality to try and bring about your egoic change. You actually have to have that surrender. And so this comes somewhat unnatural to us. So does anyone have any thoughts they want to share about any of this? There's no right or wrong perspectives. This is just, you don't have to buy this. Just have some inquiry in your own life and see. But this thing about suffering, holding on to a perspective, it's pretty profound.
It can be used in many like words as well, like many terminologies.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
different way, like different terminologies, creating the same message essentially about karma as well.
Yes.
Just not many people are, like you say, like awoken to it.
You know, cause and effect. Yeah, there's so many ways of explaining the same thing. And so, in our tradition, because we are always just, we're in the mind, the basic function of mind is raga and dvesha, which means attachment and aversion. You just see when you wake up, it's just like this heave-ho. Oh, I want this thing, I don't want that thing. I want these shoes, I don't want that shoes. I want this for breakfast, I don't want that for breakfast. I don't want to get up. Oh, I have to go to the toilet, so I have to get up. And so we're in this heave-ho. And I don't want to go to work, but I want to have this nice car. And so this is our whole life. This is just the manodharma. We're just in the mind, reaching for something, pushing something else away. Reaching for something, pushing out.
It's our human nature, right?
It's not our human nature. This is actually quite a low form of consciousness.
But would it possibly be our human nature now because of the epigenetics of, like, I guess, yeah, families growing up, like, different environments, the way society has evolved maybe the last,
Just
like,
trying to push us apart, I guess.
Yeah, that's why we've reached, like, this lower vibration of consciousness, maybe.
Yeah, so it's worthy to note here in the Vedic understanding, and this is actually shared in many traditions, that like here in New Zealand we have 4 seasons: summer, autumn, winter, spring. So here on Earth it goes through vast yugas, or cycles of time, great epochs. So the first one was a golden age, a time of great purity. The water was pure, the air was pure, full of chi, full of prana. There was no pesticides, there was no Facebook, everything was pristine. And consciousness was very, very pure, so you could very easily connect to the Supreme Soul in your heart. And then, as the seasons started to go by, the consciousness actually became more contracted. So from the Vedic perspective, written language, this is actually not a sign of evolution, it's a sign of devolution, because the sages saw, these people, they're actually becoming more stupid. So therefore, because previous to this, in all traditions, there was a tradition of oral transmission. People could hear once, ekagranti, and remember. But now, who can remember what they had for breakfast last Thursday? No, we can't.
Scrambled eggs.
Unless you have the same thing every day.
Yeah.
What about for dinner? So, in different seasons on Earth, different spiritual practices are given that are most suitable for that age. And in this current age of Kali Yuga, Kali means quarrel, because very easily quarrel arises. It's the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. Argument arises at home, in the workplace, between nations, between societies, even your own mind. Should I do this? Should I do that? Just quarrel everywhere. And it's in the atmosphere. So, and we don't have the attention to be introspective. So, because this supreme consciousness is very, very merciful, in this age, actually a very easy process has been given to wash the mind, to free the soul from this adherence to the limited aspect of the mind, this raga dvesha, attachment and aversion. And that is mantra. Manas means mind, trayate, that which delivers. That which delivers you from the prison cell of your own mind, that is a mantra. So that's why we're chanting this mantra meditation. It's not because we've just got nothing better to do, or like we run out of lyrics, or we chant as Hare Krishna. There's actually a really profound meaning to this mantra. There's a profound effect, and it doesn't depend upon your understanding, because this mantra has not been created it's not a material sound vibration. Like, you know, if someone's like, for example, in modern day linguistics, we all agree that, you know, cup, a word cup, it's a social consensus that people agree we're going to call this term cup. And in other ethnicities and cultures, they have some other term, but they all agree this term's cup. But there's no samvaya sambandha, an inherent relationship between the word and the object, because it's a social consensus. But mantra, these are sound vibrations from the spiritual world. So a bunch of people didn't just get together at some point and say, oh, Krishna, and just make up this name. Krishna and his name are non-different. So actually, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it's like one door is open from the spiritual world. And this mantra, this pure water is coming through, and it cleanses our consciousness. Because nothing material can actually purify your consciousness. Because everything material is contaminated in some way. It has some constriction, we can say. You are a spiritual being, so you need something spiritual to actually purify your consciousness. So understand that's why your own self-instigated efforts, which is still instigated from your own ego, self-elevationism, ultimately don't have the power to liberate you, because it still has some connection to the material nature. So it can take you some way, but ultimately you need a powerful spiritual practice that can do it, not something instigated by your own effort. So ultimately it comes from mercy. But you need your own effort. You can't just sit on the couch and drink a beer and think, oh, you know, I'll just wait for the mercy to come any day now. It's like two wings of a bird. If you just have one wing, you're flying in circles. So if you just have the wing of mercy, you're going to be flying in circles. If you just have the one wing of self-effort, you're also going to be flying in circles. You need both. Self-effort and mercy, and then your spiritual life can really take off. But ultimately, to really obtain the destination, it comes from mercy. And that mercy is spiritual. So that's why mantra is the prescribed spiritual practice in this age. And it's pratiti pratita. It's a self-revelation. You don't have to understand it anything. It will just reveal itself in your consciousness, because it is Chinmoy. It is completely spiritual, and you are also completely spiritual. So that's a little brief explanation about some of the things we're up to.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, little insight into karma theory. There's lots more detail we could go into, like the stages of karma and how all of this happens. But I welcome any questions.
So, sorry, is it okay if I ask a question?
Yes, please. We encourage questions.
So,
I'll just wait for you.
you said earlier that, like, with the Big Bang, possibly scientifically, that, like, all this information is being, like, expanding, and then, so, like, I'm thinking, it started the thought in my mind, like, how does the timeline, or kind of the concept of karma, is that, I guess, it's before life, during life, and after life, considering reincarnation, and where did karma start at the same time as, like, the process of, like, when Earth, do you think, maybe? Or, yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, it started that.
Yeah, this is a good question, and it shows your thinking, you know, not just sitting there. So that perspective, what I was sharing, that was from this book called Determinism, and that guy's coming from a scientific point of view. Now let's look at the cycle of creation from the Vedic point of view. So the cycle of creation is cyclic. It's just that. So it's actually eternal.
Yeah.
So just like there's seasons of creation. And so from the Vedic understanding, before creation, there's just Prakriti, material nature in a unbroken state of equilibrium. There's no manifestation. It's a state of potentiality. And then the Supreme Lord, he glances towards the material creation, and with his vision, Kal Purush, time, instigates, it presses the play button on the material creation. And then the unfolding of that particular cycle of material creation becomes manifest. Now, the souls themselves, they are spiritual and they are eternal. So they never had a beginning point. This is really challenging for us to understand because our mind is a product of the causal ocean, which means it can only cognize in beginning, middle, and end. It actually cannot digest something that is eternal because the mind itself is a subtle material element which has a beginning, middle, and end. And the spirit itself is eternal. So actually, this can only be revealed and understood in your consciousness when you're absorbed in samadhi and trance, when you're transcended the limitations of the mind-body complex. But through our intellect, we can understand something. So, first of all, we have to understand that we cannot understand. And then we become eligible to understand something. And so, because the soul is beginningless, and it's been in this various cycles of creation since beginningless time, Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbhas here said, Anadi Avidya. We have been turned away from Krishna since beginningless time. And because we've been turned away from Krishna since beginningless time, it's like a fish is swimming in the river. And on one bank, on the right side is the spiritual world. And on the left bank, the left side is the material creation. And that fish, because it has eyes on either side, it can choose to either swim to the spiritual world or it can swim to the material world. When we're self-centered, we enter into the material energy. When we enter into the material energy, then we get a gross physical body, but we also get a subtle body, which is comprised of mind, intelligence, and ego. And in this Shukshma Shariya, this very subtle covering of the soul, that is the storehouse of your particular karmas. And that carries with you from body to body to body. Now, since beginningless time, we've just been transmigrating from one species to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So there was never a beginning point of karma. It's actually beginningless, which is, and with some introspection, you'll just see the mind will just want to intercept. It'll just, but what about, it'll just, its default position is to just go back. But what about the beginning? But it just wants to do that because this is the natural propensity of our mind, because all it can do is cognize in beginning, middle, and end. And so because the cycle of creation is eternal and karma is also eternal, there is no beginning point. But we have the opportunity to get out of what is called samsara, this endless cycle of creation, and then move towards our true home, the spiritual world, which is free from karma. And that's the purpose of the human life, because in the animal species they're burning off karma, and the higher species, they are, like devatas, angels, etc., they are also enjoying so much, and there's also one kind of karmic position. So here on the earth planet, you make karma, but you can also get out of the karmic cycle. So in the lower species and the lower planets, you're burning off karma. On the higher planets, you're also burning off some karma, enjoying a lot. So interesting point here that heaven, in the Vedic understanding, it's not in the spiritual world. And the reason is this, because why do we want to go to heaven? Because we want to float on a cloud and drink some honey mead and enjoy forever playing our violin or whatever you think you're going to do. But it's all about me, right? Me enjoying. So that's still self-centered. So because it's still about me, it's still in the cycle of karma. And you can go there, you can enjoy so much, but when that karma runs out, you come back to earth. And so here on earth, this affords us the opportunity to actually get out of the samsara altogether. So it is said that there are devatas in the higher planets waiting to take birth here on earth to actually get out of the cycle of karma. So it's a very precious opportunity, this precious human birth, and we should make the most of it, and not just live like an animal and then just be born in a pig's body in the next life.
But to remove yourself from the cyclic karma, does that mean you're removing yourself from like reincarnation and the cycle of eternity and I guess life?
Yeah, good question. So yes, you're removing yourself from the cycle of karma and reincarnation, but different traditions have their own perspective as to what happens when you get out of the cycle of karma. Now, in our tradition, we have a methodology and an understanding. Actually, when you get out of the cycle of karma, then you can attain your spiritual form. So you obtain a spiritual body, but this body is not like a material body, because every material body, what will born will die. But this spiritual body, it is a condensed spiritual essence. It's made of Satchit and Ananda,
Not made water.
not earth, water, fire, air, and space. And so also our material mind cannot understand this, because in some traditions they also have some conception of going to the spiritual world. But if you ask them, what kind of form are you going to have, they start to scratch their heads. And then you ask them, what about your grandmother? Is she going to be in her 90-year-old body for eternity? And what about your little baby sister? Is she going to have a baby one? It's not really thought through very well.
I think that's why I like multicultural so much, because there isn't any of that, really.
I hope that I'm just like a pink aura.
So every soul has the potentiality to actualize their eternal spiritual form, but this is not something cheap, but this is our actual teleological purpose, is to actually actualize this eternal spiritual form and go home to our true home. Amritasya Putraha, it says in the Upanishads. Like, we're walking around with a winning lottery ticket in our back pocket, but here we are looking at the broken pieces of glass on the earth and on the ground and think, oh yeah, I found some jewel. All the time you're a trillionaire, but just ignoring that. So also in the Upanishads, in the Vedanta, it says Goham Pravistav Admanohi, and this tree of the heart's like a tree, Goham, a cave, and in that tree there's two souls, your individual soul, but also the supreme soul. So one soul is like a bird, sometimes tasting fruit, and that fruit sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet. So that's the fruit of karma. Sometimes nice, sometimes bitter. Oh, I broke up with your boyfriend, girlfriend, having a cry, lost all your money, someone stole your car. Other times, falling in love, so sweet. So sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet. And then the other bird is just silent, like a witness, and just waiting for that other bird to just turn its gaze. And when the eyes meet, the true friend coming home. Goham Pravistavatmanamohi. And then when those two souls connect, so that's the individual soul and the supreme soul, that's coming home. That's coming home to the eternal spiritual connection. And then from there, it's really just the start of our spiritual life. Otherwise, like in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Vritti Swarup iti Ratya Tadadrasahu iti Rastanam. You are either in your true nature or you're an illusion. Black and white, really clear. Not, I've got the truth and there's some, and I had some insight on ayahuasca and I've got some insights. Now you're either in truth, you're abiding in your Swarup, your true nature, or you're lost in illusion.
So you can't be like on your way there.
Yes, you can be on your way there. We're all kind of on a journey.
Yeah.
But you're either abiding in with clarity. You've taken your glasses off, or you still have your glasses on. okay, you can go from a dark tint to a lighter tint, you know, like that. But you either have them on or you have them off. And to actually meet someone who has their glasses off, this is a profound experience.
It comes down to perception, right, though? How, like, I guess we choose to perceive experience in our environment and
Well,
how we decide to use our perception.
this is what we were talking about earlier. Actually, it's only when we get freed from the lower energies of material nature that we can actually actualize our free will. Otherwise, we're just getting tossed around by whatever thought comes into our mind, and we think, oh yes, I'm very free. But actually, I'm sorry, we're that donkey. And we think, oh yes, I'm very, very free. I'm free to enjoy polyamory. But this can just be some modern social conditioning, or like this or like that, you know. But so we're just getting tossed about by the samskaras, the impressions in our mind. Like maybe some of you have done Vipassana, and there's this term called samskara. So samskara means impression. So every moment thousands of impressions are coming into our consciousness, color, shape, etc., etc. And many of these impressions, the bulk of these impressions are like lines on the water. Very quickly they dissipate. And then the next one is like a line in the sand. It stays around for some time. Yes, you had porridge last Thursday for breakfast. In 3 months you'll forget. And then, so that one dissipates after some time. And then the third category of impressions, this is like a line etched in rock. And this stays deeply embedded in our consciousness, maybe for many, many lifetimes.
Is that like if you have porridge every day for 10 years?
Yes, or like from a psychological point of view, the foundation of our personality is formed up until the age of 7. So, and that forms the foundation of the personality you have for the rest of your life. So those impressions that you receive up until the age of 7, they become the embedded aggregate of your persona in this life. And then we spend the rest of our life unpacking that, or maybe completely unconscious and just going along with it. And so ultimately this is all just a persona. It's just a mask that we wear, and we want to take this mask off because everyone just wants to be seen. That's why so many people doing selfies, putting it on Instagram. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Everyone just wants to be seen. But what they're putting forward is only a persona. It's only their body, it's only their coverings. But what they really want is a loving connection of someone to see them through all their bullshit and just love them. But when you're just presenting the degree to which you are identified with your coverings, to that degree you'll think everyone else is their coverings. And to actually have an association with someone who is liberated from these designations, just 1/11th of a second of an association with one of those persons will completely transform your heart. So we are very fortunate. We have had association with such personalities, and what we have received from them, we are just trying to share a little with you guys. And so next month, one of those personalities is coming to New Zealand, first time in 8 years. So we encourage you very strongly, just come and have some association. And what you will receive from them, you may get some opportunity to, for a moment, to just take off the glasses. And if you, our teacher, he's called Prem Parojan. And if you just get some little glimpse through the glasses, your life will be transformed.
We have tea with him.
Actually, he doesn't drink tea.
Wow.
You can have ginger tea.
Oh, he
Yeah.
does ginger tea.
Ginger tea.
Ginger tea is so
Yeah,
good
yeah.
for the teeth.
Because all these various foods, all our lifestyle, it creates more coverings. So we want to have pure habits that help to remove the coverings. They don't add to it. So things like coffee and fried food, all this thing that just densifies the muck in our consciousness. Porridge is okay.
Maybe not every day for 10 years though.
Well,
Or if it's spiced up a bit.
Add some
A
blueberries.
different flavour of porridge. then I would be okay with it.
Kiwi, blueberry.
Actually, routine brings stability, and stability brings clarity. When the mind is in a state of oscillation, then you want salty, then you want chili, then you want fiery, and you want to go here, and you want to go there, and should I go for this workshop, and now I want to go there, and I'm going to send that friend, oh, who's that over there, and you go running off. This is actually the fire element in the mind, and the mind's like a grasshopper going here, there, and everywhere.
Porridge every day, it makes it easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes
You
it
don't
fun.
have to consume your mind with the
True.
material thoughts. What shall I have? What shall I have?
Yeah.
Because then you've got all these things that you have to think about that are just material things.
Because that's what
So
we were
it's a
talking
simple,
about at the start
regulated
as well,
life.
like, I
Easy.
guess the perception of free will that like you have these options to choose from. That's available. No.
Any other questions or insights you guys would like to share?
Thank you so much for your words,
Thank you very
time, and
much.
energy.
We'll probably have another discussion tomorrow, so if you have any topic that you'd like to discuss, we're open to ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
Yeah.